I mean, we had a very diverse building. We lived in Patterson projects in the Bronx, and then we moved to Michelangelo. In either case, you know, we had Irish dude living next door, and an Ecuadorian, El Salvadorian, some black people, some Puerto Ricans. So I got to listen to everything from great 60s soul music to Fania All-Stars to jazz, you name it. We pretty much heard everything. But my mom's best friend's brother used to play piano with Joe Cuba Sextet. So we listened to a lot of Boogaloo, so which is actually pretty much a big mixture of all that stuff anyway. My aunt was 10 years older than I was, and we had a lot of brothers and sisters in my mother's family. She was the one that's usually assigned to babysit me. So we would go to 18 Park, PS 18 Park out there in Patterson, and my aunt would take me to the jams when she was supposed to be actually watching me. So I would get to go out there and hear people like Flash, because in that area, Grandmaster Flash was pretty much the DJ that ran the Mott Haven section of the Bronx, even though he wasn't from that area. And the Casanovas ran that area. So my earliest memories was probably going to the park with my aunt, Yvette, and hanging out with Yvette's best friend's little brother, David. We were in school together. And she would leave us by the swings or by the seesaw and say, don't get in no trouble. And she would go out there, hang out with her peoples and do whatever she did with her peoples. And I would go and find trouble, which was usually in the B-boy circle. Because that's the only place they let somebody my age hang out in, pretty much. I was really learning on my own, because when you're that young, you know, if you're not in a crew, which, you know, usually you're not initially, somebody has to either find you or see you, or you get put on and, you know, whatever. And I was actually b-boying on a piece of cardboard on the side of 414 Morris Avenue, right there off 144th and Morris, and this kid named Lenny walked up with this kid named Freddie, and they saw me b-boying, and they were like, yo, you know, do that again. And I did it, and they're like, I didn't know you know how to do air moves. And I didn't know what an air move was, and I'm like, what's an air move? And this is an air move, and they did it, and I'm like, Eddie, Lenny, and Freddie. Freddie ended up being Freddie Fresh. You know, the Freddie Fresh. So, you know, so he saw me do that, and he was like, yo, you know, can you do this? And he did it, and I never saw the move, but I did it. And he was like, yo, you kind of nice. And started calling me Cheeky Thing, because I was a little kid. So then they kind of took me under their wing, and then it ends up that my aunt knew him, and you shouldn't get involved with those dudes, you know, you know, whatever. But that was my b-boy, my earliest b-boy moment. That had to be maybe, I don't know, 79, 80, somewhere around there. Well, I had a cousin named Benji that was a DJ. I mean, he wasn't a scratch DJ, he just DJ'd, but, you know, he had equipment and it looked cool. And I always wanted to do that kind of thing, and I never really, he never really let me get on it. But his father and mother, you know, his father was my mother's favorite uncle. So every time she was going over there, I would go over there just to get on Benji's equipment, and he let me get on, but it was just like a, you know, here, good, you did your thing, get off. And when I moved to Long Island in 83 or 82, there was a DJ around the way named DJ Will, and I would hang out with him and wait till he went to smoke his weed. And as soon as he went to go smoke his weed, I would get on the turntables real quick and just practice till he came back. And eventually I got, you know, pretty good. I got probably as good as him in about maybe 2 weeks of that. So, you know, there was something that actually was pretty organic for me, real easy. So that kind of like took over from the b-boy thing. I did both for quite a while, but that kind of like really took over my heart. It was more in my heart than the b-boy at the time, at least. The whole thing, man. Back in those days, I think that if you didn't really blow up, you kind of were like blown out of the water. It was one of those things. Like Rockin Rob, who's getting the name now, he was around during those days, but he never got as big as like the Flash Squad or the Cold Crusher, you know, those kind of people, or Herculoids or whatever. But, you know, there was a lot of people doing it, a lot more than you would think. But keep in mind, nobody had money for equipment. It wasn't until the blackout of '77 that all of a sudden everybody got equipment, you know, mysteriously. You know, blackout, all of a sudden the next day the stores don't have any equipment in them because they're in people's basements. So, I mean, there were some really, but not really, you know what I mean? Because a lot of those kind of people just, if you didn't get on, back in those days, you either have to really want it or just, you know, because it ain't like now where people think it's a fad. No, I'm gonna get in on this, make some money. Back in those days, you had to love it because hip hop wasn't popular. It ain't like now where it's so popular that everybody wants to do it. Back in those days, only the geeks did it. You had to be a real geeky dude that wrote poetry. Who writes poetry? That was like sissy stuff. Same thing with artwork. Why are you doodling? You're drawing the Hulk. Why are you doing that? You know, you had to love that so much that you were subject to ridicule by people. Even when the disco cats, that was what the cool thing was. Like, you know, Starsky and them guys would say, yo, actually Hollywood was known for saying that, yo, take that shit out to the park with Kool Herc. You know, don't do that stuff up in here. Wow, so you know, you had to really be subjected to some cruelty. So, you know, I think those guys fell by the wayside real fast. Will, who's still a good friend of mine to this day, it's funny, one of his MCs, Corey, his younger cousin was Positive K. But this is way before there was a Positive K. So K used to come to my crib as a little kid, and they used to sit there and watch him when they were on the turntables, which is funny, but that's another story. Will told me that when I wanted to learn to mix, and Will was good, actually. He says, you want to learn how to mix and be real good, you got to go contact this dude, DJ Hig, who was DJing like teen clubs. He's DJing everything. He's part of a group called TBA, the best around. So I found him at a teen club called Roxys in East Meadow, Long Island, which is not even relevant to anything. But I went out there, and it happens that there was a b-boy battle. So that's how I got in. You entering the contest, you didn't pay to get in. So I entered the contest. It was me and my crew, and one of my members of my crew was Busta Rhymes, who was called Kid Craze, or I named him Kid Craze as a papa. And we went in there, and it ended up that I ended up battling pretty much everybody by myself. And I won. So I won this Who's the Best Breakdance on Long Island thing. And I didn't care. So Hig gave me a little trophy or some crap. And I'm like, are you DJ Hig? And he goes, yeah. And I'm like, I heard about you. I heard you're nice. He goes, yeah. So I said, I want to battle you. That's the only way to get on, because usually you ask me to get on the turntables, they can say no. I want to battle you. So he laughs at me. He goes, yeah, all right, kid. He goes, you know what? If you want to battle somebody, you battle my partner, Andy. So why you do it in the booth? And he's all like, yeah, I'm DJ Andy. He had a shirt that said DJ Andy. So that's how you knew he was DJ Andy. So I get in the booth, and he throws on Al Nairfish, The Soul. It's time. And, you know, he just knows he's going to kill me. And I destroy this dude. So Hig goes, oh, my God. So he gives me his card. He goes, come to this address tomorrow, which is his house. I get to his house, and it ends up his younger brother's Charlie Brown. He's not Charlie Brown yet, he's KBMC, but he says, yo, he's about your age, you're in the same school. And I knew who he was, I didn't like him. I was like, I hate that dude, I know him, yeah, I hate him. You know, and he's like, yeah, but don't worry about him. And we became a little crew, and it's just like the crews in the Bronx. One guy would mix, and then when the cutting time came on, that's when I came on. And I did my thing, and then Hig would go and mix, and eventually I learned to mix just as good as Hig, and you know, then we became like more of a team, and we're still friends to this day also. And of course, you know, that's how me and Brown hooked up and became a crew, and that's how Busta got down. And Hig was DJing in New Jersey at a place called Roxys. Must have been a real famous name for clubs like that. And we were supposed to open up for Alicia, who sang Two Turned On, that song, Two Turned On, big club hit back in the days. So we was loving that. Oh, what, Alicia, you know, and back in those days we didn't differentiate. Alicia was cool, we loved the music. So it wasn't like, oh, that's that club stuff or that freestyle. It was all hip hop to us. So it was all good. So I'm like, we're gonna open up for Alicia, bet. So it's me and Brown, and we were the Bumrush 2. So we had another dude come in named Ian, E-Ski Spectacular, who was actually nice. So, Ian came in and was like, yo, we're gonna put you down because we need another MC. We're gonna have 2 MCs and a DJ. So we went out to Roxy's and we ripped it. And my man Daryl Monroe, D Nasty they called him, he was a big DJ from Long Island back in the days. He did a beat for us that we did on a sequential circuits drum machine that we used for our show. And I scratched 2 copies of Nipple to the Bottle, and we rocked off of that. And we met DJ Cheese that night because it was in New Jersey, and he stole my records. So you can put that on a record. He stole my records, or somebody in his crew stole my records. And you know, but we got out of there intact. It was a real fun night. That was our first like real show, if you wanted to call it that. To be honest with you, we made that name up on the spot because prior to me being down with Brown, I had a crew called the Bumrush Crew, and it was me, Busta Rhymes, my man Miguel, who's now living in Florida, my man Gil, and basically we all Latinos except for Busta. So we were basically evolution of our b-boy crew. We just started. That's what and my man Albie Cora, who actually got some credits on some of the PE stuff too. He was a protege of mine. We went to school together also. So. Okay. There's one huge long tape that we did back in '85 or something like that with a little Dr. Rhythm drum machine, and it seemed like the longest song ever because it was like a whole side of a tape of just rhyming. And it was like we changed stories and we had like a little teeny little keyboard and it was like It was terrible, but it was so terrible it was great. Hig was good friends with Eric Sadler. And it just so happens that Eric Sadler and Hank Shockley were cousins. They didn't know that until they started working together, but Mr. Gant's dental office on 510 had multiple like spaces. And upstairs was Spectrum City's area with EJ the DJ. That's where they kept their equipment, and they were really like a party machine. And downstairs was Eric Sadler's demo rehearsal area. So Eric heard of a contest where they were looking for MCs. So he calls Hig and goes, yo, you know, tell your brother and his boy Juice that there's a contest up here. You know, they might want to come and try out. They maybe get a deal. I don't know. So I said, you know, I was in the Bronx actually that weekend, my grandmother's house really, so I could go check my b-boy homies. And then I get a call, about 1 million calls from Brian Brown on my answer machine, because this is before cell phones and before beepers. And I get home and there's 1 million messages. Yo, where you at? Yo, hurry up. There's a contest, where you at? You know, so I finally call him back. I'm like, what's the deal? There's a contest up at 510. Everybody's there. We got to be part of this. Let's go. I'm like, okay. So his mom picks us up. That's how long ago we still in high school. Mom picks us up. Mrs. Higgins picks us up, drives us over to 510, and then sure enough, there's a line. You know, they were in the back of the office, all the way down that hallway, out, down the stairs, through the I guess the convening area in the front, out the door and around the block. So Busta was with us, and he didn't want to wait. Forget this, and he leaves. So we had my man Daquan with us, who's doing youth center stuff now, and we're like, you're gonna do his rhymes. We're gonna do routines, and you pretend you're Busta. Don't worry about it. They don't know. And we finally get up in there, and it wasn't like that. It was a one-on-one thing where you either rhymed to a beat, they recorded you, and they called you if you won, or you scratched and they recorded you, and if you won, they called you. So we did our thing. I scratched 2 copies of Funky President on SL 1300 turntables and a Mixman mixer, and it was Keith's equipment, so it was like 75 feet tall. I had to stand on milk crates. And when we left, Brown's mom picked us up. We hung out at Eric Sadler's spot until his mom came. And, you know, Brown's like, you know, how you think you did, Juice? I don't think we made it. I'm like, I think I made it. I don't know about you. I got busy, son. You know, I was real cocky back in those days. And sure enough, I got called. And Chuck says, come on in. You know, Monday night, 8 o'clock, that was our days. And I met who would later be the Kings of Pressure. To do the Kings of Pressure stuff, I noticed there was a whole bunch of names and logos on the wall. One of them was Son of Berserk and the Hell Raiders, one was the Terminal Illness Crew, one was Easy the New School, Kings of Pressure, and one was Public Enemy. A new group that they just put together. They were working on an album for Def Jam at the time. It's a new Public Enemy album they're working on. And when they heard me scratch, they were like, yo, would you mind coming and scratching on an album we're working on? I'm like, all right. And Chuck would usually drive me home, because I lived in Uniondale, which is next to Hempstead, and it was on the way to Roosevelt. Chuck lived in Roosevelt. So he would drop me off. I'd have a car. And I would like to mention, though, I would bring Brown with me every time we went up there, even though he didn't win. And Chuck was like, you can't keep bringing this dude here, he didn't win. I'm like, he's my man. So eventually he put Brown down anyway. On the way back home, he would play the songs that they were working on. It was like, I want you to scratch on this album. Get some ideas and bring some records. So I did. And then we went out to Chung King, and feel free to do whatever you want. Now, there was a new Mark mixer, the bar mitzvah mixers, you know, the surfboard joints, the 19-inch rack mount joints, and a 12. And he would give Norman, Terminator, 3 tries. If Terminator couldn't do it in them 3 tries, it was my turn, because I don't know about budgets now, but back in those days, we tried to keep our budget real small. So, Terminator couldn't get in 3 tries, it was up to me. And I usually got it on the first take. So that was how I did a lot of, like I did Riot Starter. That was probably the first time there was really drumming on a record. I mean, you could say Here We Go by Run DMC, but that was a live show. But like on an actual record, well, I scratched the kick drum through the whole thing. You know, now it's a turntablist thing. But, you know, we did that. We tried different things, why not? And then there were some records where like me and Norman both scratched on it, like Raise the Roof.